The first question is, if you had one day left, how would you spend it with who? If you had one day left, how would you spend it? It's hard to be like, if today was my last day. But in a way, if I could design the perfect day for myself, how would I spend it? Who with? Well, I'd probably like to see all of my family at some point during the day, maybe at different intervals, maybe all together. What would be the most ideal day? Well, I've always wanted to go in a helicopter. I've never been in a helicopter, so I'd like to be in a helicopter with my loved ones. What else? I mean, if I could drive the helicopter, that'd be pretty cool. Or even if, like, I guess ultimate day, imagine like you're taking a helicopter trip and then he's like hovering over something and he's like, all right, now everyone on board, you got to jump off the helicopter into the water. Hopefully it's somewhere tropical where the water's warm. Boom, you jump off into the water. You're so scared, whatever, jumping out of a helicopter. And you hit the thing and then you got to swim to shore, which is like you're super close. And then you swim to shore and then you have like a crazy potluck. All your friends are there. Potluck, let's go. I just came in on that heli and you saw me jump out and now I'm swimming to shore and now I'm having a potluck with all my friends. I mean, if it was my last day, well, part of me is like, dude, I want to like make some love, have some sex, like you give it one more try to have a baby before I zip out of here. At the same time, it's like I ain't got no girlfriend, so how would I deal with that? I don't know, but yeah, if I had a last day, it'd probably be like maximum adventure, seeing those I love, like mostly my brothers, and it's kind of yeah interesting now because I'm home and there's chances to see my brothers, and then I'm kind of like isolating myself. Why am I doing that? Why am I doing that? Well, I guess I'm also like I'm doing that because I feel like I'm in this kind of cocooning process. It's like, what do I want to give on the next level, but I need to go. The best thing you can do for anyone else is work on yourself. So, yeah, today's been an interesting day. Well, I was gonna go on some other rant and get off topic, but to answer the question, what would I do? My last day, spend it with my brothers, spend it with my family. Um, Go in a helicopter, have a potluck with my friends. Uh, and like friends, I'm thinking like most of my friends in Ecuador, Vilcabamba, and then some friends that I've had throughout my life. If I could just teleport them to that potluck, and then that's what it'd be. It'd kind of be like a wedding, my last day. Just invite all the homies, woo, party, yeah, fun stuff. So that's how I'd answer that question. Next question. 62. How do you want people to remember you after you're gone? Oh, interesting question. How do you want people to remember you after you're gone? This idea of legacy. And also, I think I've thought about it before of like building something that lasts. This energy of, how do you. Because, like, right now in the world, it's like I think of like the Hawk Tuah girl. It's like she's a meme and she's hot for a few months. Will she hang around? Who knows, right? And so I feel like everyone's like viral, viral, viral. It's like, okay, you could be here today, gone tomorrow. Drake has that song where he opens with that. He's like, only good music is here to stay. And that's, I mean, think about like literally like back to a wedding. Think about a wedding and the songs they played. These are classic, timeless songs that stay. And how do you have a legacy? How do you remembered? What am I remembered for? There's also this quote, we die twice. Once when we leave the body, and the second time we die is the last time someone ever utters our name. And then all of a sudden you think about that and you're like, oh geez, there's like, that's a real thing. People like just stop saying so-and-so's name, right? Like even probably like 4 sets of grandparents back, you may not know their names. So are they dead now? But what would so say I reach this legend status, what am I remembered for? And then I think of people remember you for how you made them feel. What do I want to be remembered for? I want to be remembered for having a smile that could light up the world. uh, but no, it's not really just a smile. It's that laughter. It's kind of the first thing that came to mind. What would I want to be remembered for? My laughter. one, me and the effect that my laugh has on other people, and two, when people around me, they feel like they're laughing too, and they're like, man, yeah. And it's like, can you get people to laugh and then not be a funny person? Because I don't know if like I also want to be remembered as like the, oh, he was so funny, he's really missed. It's like more than that, right? I don't think anyone truly wants to be remembered for being funny, but they do want to be remembered for making people feel joy in a way. And what do I want to be remembered for? Well, I have this other idea of like I'm the greatest philosopher on the planet. So do I want to be remembered for my philosophy? Eh, mm, I don't know. And I guess this is something I heard too, where it's like, do I like with all of this digital stuff and being a teacher in the modern day world and sharing ideas, do you want to have people constantly asking you about your material and your work and, oh, how does this work and how does that, and always asking about the material? Or do you want to be intuitively solving people's problems? And honestly, I want to be more in the second camp, intuitively solving people's problems, because just when I step into those scenarios, that feels more human. It's like we're having a conversation of depth now, and that depth leads to growth, and it just feels more organic. So being remembered for just having a unique way, a charismatic, kind, curious way, and really wanting to be remembered for always doing my best to play win-win, for wanting the best. And I guess part of wanting the best, being remembered for wanting the best, well, being remembered for achieving the best, I just want the best for others. But I think if I want the best for others, there's also tied up in there, it's like I have to want the best for myself. And yeah, so what do I want to be remembered for after all that I said and all these ideas? I still think I want to be remembered for how I made people feel. And I want them to feel laughter, joy in my presence. And yeah, I want to shine bright, and I want others to shine bright. And I want to be remembered for that, from helping others shine bright. That would be a pretty cool thing to be remembered for. All right, let's go. Next question, 63. What legacy would you like to leave behind? Well, the legacy I would like to leave behind is the footsteps or the skeleton or the structure for the next wave of education. Because, and this is kind of like interesting, if you think about like how many companies have still been around after 30 years, it's like, with some kind of, Toyota, this, that. I mean, we could come up with answers, right? At the same time, there's also this, we see companies come and go, right? How many companies have just emerged in the last 30 years who are doing amazing? And where am I going with this? Well, companies, I feel like they have a shorter lifespan than universities, right? Like there's been universities around for like 200-300 years, right? So it's like, how can I leave that legacy behind? I mean, the coolest thing at my funeral, in a way, would to have my funeral be packed with students who go out and achieve just amazing things with their life. And in some way, shape, or form, we crossed paths and we got to share notes, and it was beautiful. And yeah, I want to leave a legacy of that. I mean, my life, I'm beginning to organize it towards how can I have the best, but also serve the future generations, the children that are being born today, how are they going to grow up into a world where they have the resources, the guidance, the mentorship, the encouragement, and the accountability to achieve that greatness that's inside of them, to unlock that greatness inside of them. Are we on this fast track to conscious evolution and the development of consciousness inside human beings, right? And how, if so, how do we water that? How do we create an environment for that? I also think it happens naturally. So instead of me being like, how do I do that? How do I raise someone's consciousness? It's like, I don't think I can. I can't control that. It's not worth attempting to control. And instead, it's like, how do I create an environment where that naturally happens? What ideas need to be there to have that happen, right? And why does someone come in, I'm thinking of like Ken Wilber's Stages of Development, which is somewhat tied to this eight circuit nervous system, despite being different, and spiral dynamics, all of these things, and going to like the next level in those things, and this goes from ego set. It's like, what is it? Me, we, us, and something like that. But pretty much, like I think Jamie Wheel talk about this, but he's like, if a plane is going down, your first thing is to put your mask on yourself before you help anyone. Okay, boom, plane like crashes. The first thing you do when you come, like open your eyes and you're like, you look at your body, you're like, am my body intact? Okay, are my loved ones' bodies intact? Are they good? And you spend time with them. And then after that, you're like, who else is alive on this plane? So I feel like that's natural. How do we develop through that? And then the thing I'm thinking is, people talk about tribalism, and then we have nationalism, and there's this American flag right there, right? How do we evolve actually out of that to being global citizens, world centric? And this is all ideas that like we all are one in a way, but actually lived. And the only way for us all to be one is kind of paradoxical, because we have to put ourselves first. Because it's like, yeah, that's because that's what we can control. And you can't get to, like, you're not going to be able to be world centric when you're hungry. You're going to have to be like, let me pause all these adventures and let me go feed myself and take care of myself, and then I can come back to being world centric in a way. So I think part of this world centric view is it's not a permanent stage. It's constantly in flux. Sometimes I have to be focused on myself and my needs, and feeding myself, nurturing myself, these things. And then from there, now I'm good. Now I can make sure my loved ones are good. Now that I'm good, my loved ones are good, now I can make sure my wider community is good. And you just keep scaling this out. And to have everyone thinking that, and I do think there's times when people are ready for that. I feel like if you're barely able to like take care of yourself, yeah, it's going to be confusing to think of world ideas, right? But if you've reached a level of like survival needs being checked, and this is why I'm like curious about this word of like survival versus thriving, because I feel like in the thriving world, it's like I have my boxes checked. There's not necessarily any material thing I want or need to like feel okay. I kind of see all that as just like some sort of status game, which is fun, but I also know it doesn't bring lasting fulfillment. Like, don't get me wrong, like I would love to be driving a Lamborghini home right now or whatever. It would just be fun, but I know that's not also where fulfillment lies. So now I got to reread the question. Oh, I know the question. It's, what do I want my legacy to be? And my legacy, I feel like I want it to be in this realm. I mean, my legacy, I feel like, is tied to my vision that I'm pursuing. And this is kind of the first project in that pursuit of that vision. But that vision, again, is me sitting in this giant library with this corridor behind me. And you could just feel in this building that it's baked with laughter, curiosity, joy, all those things that you see in like that in youth, right? You see youth just packed with like exploration and wanting to learn and this craving for more and to find some sort of groove for themselves. They're chiseling away at themselves, right? And an environment where that's present and everyone lives in that, and the joy that comes, the authenticity shared, that sensation, that's my legacy right there. Now I'm trying to I will reverse engineer it, but it's ambiguous, right? How are you supposed to do that? And how are you supposed to build a new world when we're trained to look for templates? So, and in a way, yeah, I don't need to be the first or anything like that, but I'm happy just being one of the faculty in a way, but just knowing that I was kind of one of the torch carriers at a point to bring us there, to lay the foundation for what education and really means. What's the difference between indoctrination and education, and is self-education different than education, and all of these little nooks and crannies, right? Like, we have a school system that I don't feel serves, right? And you could follow the history of the school system. It's to create factory workers in a way. So how do we... yeah. Oh, sorry, I was looking at dude and a dog. But before this, there was a different type of, like, debatably, the current education we have is what I would call slave education. And even 10 years ago, when I was researching this, the term I was using then is we're having glorified babysitters, aka children warehousing. And the new cool thing that you should be able to do is you're so successful that when you have kids, because that is the closest thing to your AI, that's, your genes, that's the natural version of it, that's version 2 of you. Are you there with them, nurturing them? How present are you in your children's life is the ultimate flex, right? And like, we all already know that story of like the millionaire dad who's never freaking around and now has, kids that are burning his money when all they wanted is his time, right? And or they're all messed up despite having everything. And yeah, how do we avoid that? And what does it mean? I think parents are the first children, but what does it mean now to parent? And I don't think is there a right way or wrong way to do it? There's also this quote, I'm forgetting his name, but he ran an orphanage and he's like, give me a child between 0 to 7 and I'll show you their future. And this talks a lot about, our brain waves are actually in different states from 0 to 7. And that's where most information is just programmed right into the subconscious. We're just accepting everything as true. So, do we have guide rails for how to raise children in there, right? And I'm realizing this, just like handling and being an older brother, it's like there's a hard and a soft way to do everything. And there's a whole game of discernment on when you pull out what, Am I doing the hard way? Am I using the hammer? Or am I doing the soft way and I'm got the butter knife, right? It's like, and then how do we, teaching moments, right? So how do we wrap all that together? Legacy. So my legacy in the field of all of that, education, these ideas, right? And a lot of just what I'm putting on the table is like, let's just get all the perspectives out there and then let's see where the golden thread naturally wants to appear. And part of getting all the perspectives out there is like, I've done a lot of research by myself and a lot of reading by myself. And now it's like, I need to have conversations. We got to actually figure out what perspectives are resonating. I need feedback on these perspectives. And then now how do we build that, right? But I also think it's pretty simple. Like I just think of mimicking and monkey see, monkey do. So if the monkey sees, you're like I was talking about, I think yesterday, it's like if the monkey sees you're on the iPad the whole time, the monkey's going to be like, I need to be on my iPad the whole time. So in a way, it's like exceptional humans are going to create exceptional children. And I think just the only caveat there is like the amount of time that you guys are spending together, and also time, like focus time in a way, right? And then how public are you about your reflections? And my learnings from my parents, honestly, I've done most of the learning indirectly, right? They're telling a story or they're interacting with their friends, and then that's actually how I learn a lot from my parents. Them sometimes telling me, I have a lot of resistance, but me observing them, I'm like, oh, okay. So I think there's something to all of that. One, I do think it is kind of this like, well, you just got to be the best version of yourself. But I also do think like structure is good. And I think like freedom within that structure, but also like you want to do the structured thing. So that's the cool thing about being a kid in a way. It's like in school, it's like the bell rings, next class, this many minutes to get there, boom, now you're doing this task. So how do we keep some of those elements of structure, but also provide a freedom, right? One, can we go through everything that that is being given within those current buckets of structure and kind of strip it down and simplify it? And then two, what needs to be added? So first, let's subtract, and then two, let's add in that juice, right? So, yeah, I want to have more talks with more people who are curious about this stuff. Really, that's the only thing. So it's looking like it's pretty dark, but on the camera I'm still showing up decently. So let's see here. I'm gonna answer another question. Let's see. I might have to pick up the second half of these questions somewhere else. But I'm on 64. What does leading a meaningful life look like to you? Well, what does meaningful life look like to you? In a way, there's there's this flavor of like constantly being challenged. Because I think about myself, and it's like my mom was just joking with me about this the other day. It's like you can get everyone else a job, but you don't want a job. And I was telling my mom, I'm like, yeah, because the second I understand how to do something, like the second I learn the system in which they want me to operate and run, and I do it, and then I get bored, right? And I'm like, you mean to tell me I'm stuck in this loop, this system? And I'm like, I can't do that. So for me, a meaningful life, in a way, it's got this flavor of constantly pursuing my curiosities. And I also feel like meaningful life has to do with uh, watering our priorities. And we get to define our priorities, right? So, one, grasping that power, that I have the power to choose what is a priority. And then, two, the things that I claim are priorities, I have the choice and the will to take action towards, whatever those priorities are, towards living out those priorities. And I think that's really it. A meaningful life is coming back to the fact that I have choice and then choosing what I want. And then I think of success, right? Success, the strangest secret, right? You become what you constantly think. And with success in there, success is anyone who has a worthy aim and is working towards it. So, and then it's taking full ownership of that. I get to set the aim, and I get to show up for this. And it's not I have to show up, it's really that I get to show up for this, right? Because I don't think, ideally you have an aim where not that much will is required, right? And I think will is always required. And I just think of like fitness, right? I'm like listening to some, billionaire podcasts, and these people talk with just huge, they still share. It's like sometimes in the morning, even David Goggins, right? Like showing up, going to do my exercise, whatever, I still struggle with it, but I get it done, right? And so they just have these standards. And I don't know, how that fits into a meaningful life, but I guess I'm just reminding myself that even the people who you look up to and want to be like, and, society says these people have made it, if you listen, they have all said it's still hard. David Goggins tells a story where sometimes he'll sit in front of his shoes before he goes on a run for 20 minutes. And we all know what he's doing in those 20 minutes. He's battling with himself. Oh, I don't want to go. I don't want to. It's like, you're going to go. I don't want to. You're going to go. And then finally something clicks, and then he's off on the run. And it's like, I'm dealing with that now by kind of setting my checklist schedule and all these things. And then ideally people talk about like, well, it gets easier over time because that's just, it becomes the habit, and then the habit becomes the lifestyle, and then it becomes automatic. And then there's also, I think of this 4 levels of learning where you have unconscious competence, which is the ultimate level, right? First, you don't know what you don't know. You're unconscious and you're incompetent. And then you become conscious and incompetent. You know what you're not good at or what you don't know. You're like, oh, I don't know that, or I don't know how to do that. And then you have conscious competence. This is the practice. This is where it's like, this is that learning curve. This is why we get tired. And then it becomes automatic, as people talk about, and that's unconscious. I don't even have to think about it anymore, and I'm competent at it. And, this is really the whole communication sales thing is you're just like, oh, I'm doing these things, and I no longer have to think about it. It's just, I just say them. These are my go-tos. And they find a way to blend it. I'm thinking of salespeople in particular, where they're blending it not only to their clientele, but also to their friends. They realize, hey, some of these questions, some of the ways I phrase things in the delivery, this is a universal good for everyone. And so it's a tool in their toolbox, and they share that. So that's what comes to mind. That is what comes to mind. And that's what I wanted to share. And now I gotta check what the OG question was, just so I can summarize it one more time. And the question was, what does leading a meaningful life look like to you? And then to me specifically. Meaningful life. Well, it's a life of laughter, and it's a life of being authentic to yourself. That's what it looks like. And the environments and the situations in which laughter is created, there's a multitude of those. A lot of ways for that to happen. So, what does it look like? A life of meaning. Well, it looks like me getting, like, that meaning also is me moving closer to me as this, like, old wise grandpa sage energy who's unlocked a level of, who's just built an empire, a garden where people can come and nurture their curiosity, right? And like that is driving me. And now it's more of like, can I give myself to that process instead of like being controlled by all of my kind of insecurities and that meaningful life. And ideally that pursuit of that the side effects will be laughter, will be joy, will be fulfillment. Yeah, at the same time, it's like you could argue this last year or so, there's been various ways in which my life has lacked meaning, which has led to, kind of a little bit of this downward spirally effect. And the sick and tired of being sick and tired, because I think it was in my previous thing I was saying, where it's like being controlled by my insecurities versus being like, no, I have to give myself to this dream, because otherwise it's like, there is no meaning. And if there is no meaning, what do people do when there is no meaning, right? It sounds like they're depressed when they have no meaning. So that's some thoughts on that. What does meaning mean to me? And then I got this little light here. I just set it in the corner. That looks like a flashlight vibes. Let's see. Flashlight vibes. All right, one sec. We're doing some lighting adjustments. I'm just gonna roll with it. Not gonna be this high quality production, man. Let me see. All right. Night light. There we go. We got the night light. That makes my teeth look white because I got the night light. All right. I'm just gonna bang these out. We got the night light. We're cruising. I'm like, I'm gonna go home. I only answer 5. No. Be cold in the dark by the ocean. We're gonna do it. Okay. 65. If happiness was the national currency, what kind of work would make you rich? Well, boom, laughter is what I think of, and then it's like being a comedian. But I also think of like comedian tend to be some of the most sad people, right? And happiness, how do we define happiness, right? I think happiness is more towards this delayed gratification / fulfillment than this instant gratification pleasure sort of paradigm. Okay, so we got that, happiness. So how would you help people find fulfillment? Well, also I'm realizing with this fulfillment thing that the best thing we could do is point. Really. We can point. And the next thing about pointing is like we ask questions and then we get the person themselves to point and be like, I'm going there. And then you could just, hey, what's up? Are you swimming? Are you going to that island that you were pointing at? Where you at? Where's your boat at? Oh, cool. You're on your way there? Cool, I'm hype. That's all. Accountability and that. And I just think of that thing right now where it's like we can't steal anyone else's lesson. At the same time, I could just point to where I'm going and be like, hey, this is where I'm going and this is how I'm doing it and I'm sharing my journey. And then I could just have the intention that this is an inspiration, but if you're giving yourself to that dream, ideally that dream is beyond you, and then the dream is doing all the work, or God, or however we want to go. So I really think fulfillment has to do with delayed gratification. And so how would I get rich? Well, the people who help, or the currency, or people who would be rich are the people who are helping people orient their lives towards delayed gratification. And I also think, more importantly than that, the thing that makes us the most happy is companionship. So I think the person who's also throwing events where you're getting people together, that person's rich. Where people can, I'd be running a speed dating cartel, and that's how I would make people happy. Some sort of matching app where you get a match with like-minded people. That would make you rich if happiness was the currency. So this social aspect of can we just throw parties and just let humans be humans and watch it naturally unfold? And, it's like it come back to that. Like, I really just want to help create the environment in which all of this cool stuff can flourish, right? It's not, it's the event, it's not the workshop. Wait, it's the location. Something along those lines, though. It's still bacon in me, but something to do with that. How do I create the environment where you naturally can find like-minded people, right? And you naturally can find others who are on a path towards delaying gratification because they want to work on something big and sexy. So, or they, not necessarily they want to, it's like they can't find contentment if they don't, in a way. So those are some of my ideas. And I think it would come back to that. How would I create an environment for excellence, really? And if I could be a founder of that, like, yeah, it is my apartment complex where everyone here is amazing. And, that was one of the hot ideas when I was in college. It was, this idea of co-living, but co-living, and this is still popular in the Bay Area, a bunch of founders living in a house together. And then at night they're having crazy conversations. And it's like, wait, let's all save money and, lean business operations, living with other entrepreneurs. It's like, let's do that. And then let's not be so shy of this like party thing, right? Let's partying. Like, man, in every other culture, this is where deals happen. And in America, we have to pretend like, oh, we just signed paper in our suit and tie, and it's not like we go get freaking partied up together. It's like, we're always trying to preserve this level of professionalism. At the same time, it's like we're crazy animalistic beings that like to have a good time, like to party, like to get wild, like to be kind of entertained, like to be like, woo, 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 kind of on an adventure. Fulfillment, creating an environment where like-minded people can come together, creating an environment where people can share their depth and their challenges and their wins, a place of recognition, all of these things. That's how you get rich. If happiness was the currency. All right. 66. How did you first fall truly in love? What happened? Whoa. All right. Well, what came to mind? Well, the first thing that came to mind is my first long-term relationship. And then the second thing that came to my mind is middle school Casey. And middle school Casey fell in love with his own imagination and then projected that onto a human being and then got blinded by everything else. That's the reality of it. I was listening to R&B songs and just craving that, and then I had my crush and I'm like, she's gonna be that for me. And then she turned out being just her own self and being like, she didn't feel the same way I felt about her. And then it didn't work out, and we tried it. I did manifest it, and we dated for a month, but it was we were so young. I was like a freshman, and I really felt like I love this girl. But in reality, me thinking about it now with some more wiseness, it's like I was in love with the idea of being with this girl, right? And yeah, there's a lot to that. I fell in love with my own fantasies. And I made it be like this girl. And I think instead, there's some wisdom in there that I don't think I've fully unpacked. Because instead of being like this girl, it's like, wait, all those fantasies are still valid. But does it have to be her, right? Because in a way, I was telling the universe, it can only happen this one way. No other way. No surprises. And I guess I learned that lesson later in life. But one of the deepest lessons I've learned is nothing ever goes as planned, but always turns out better than imagined. So that was just younger me trying to control everything, being like, it's going to be her, and we're going to live this R&B love song life forever and ever and ever, right? I had my own Disney hysteria. So I think of that. Love and that. And then I also question, because I do see in both of my other partners how I carried hints of that, right? How you carry hints of how you think love is going to be from your imagination, right? You think love is going to be this type of way, right? And then you force that onto your partner, right? And now I'm kind of like, and I got to thank my last partner for this and really kind of driving this home, despite how stubborn I still think she is. that that can we just love someone for them, for who they are, right? And like with my boys, I can do that. My brothers, my friends, it's like, this dude's a who, this dude's a crack, man, I love this guy, man, this guy's just a good time to be around, and I know he's got his battles and his things, but I love this person. And with your boys, you're not like, you need to be like this to be my boy, right? It's just like, no, that person's dope, we either match or we don't match, and that's it. And for some reason, I've got this like control freaky thing with love, right? But I guess it's just also like, just a lover boy, had these wild fantasies and imaginations and, these thoughts of what love is when you're in middle school. And then, when the universe doesn't reflect that to you and you're with a romantic partner, you're like, oh, frustration. I feel frustration. And now I'm like, all right, I'd rather be more patient, not like get into a relationship, anything, slow down everything to be like, can I just love this person for them? I don't want to fall in love with someone's potential or fall in love with my own fantasies, right? And I do think there is more to like falling in love with your fantasies, right? And I think it's just me looking at myself and be like, okay, run those fantasies out and can you actually live them? And like, I guess getting more and more clear with the fantasies. And I guess my latest fantasy I had, we recently went to Vegas, and we were there too long. My whole family, we went to Vegas. We were there too long, like 5 days. But it's a great place, I think, for a weekend, like ultimate weekend date night thing. And then I had this vision there, or this fantasy there, and it's like, imagine you're with your boo for 2 years or whatever, and you've been to Vegas before, and this. It's like you go to Vegas. And then one of the nights, right? Or maybe, yeah, I don't know how you set it up. But you both put on these like alter egos, right? Or she puts on an alter ego, wears a wig and, whatever. And then, you just like give some sort of thing, right? Like this casino. And then, hopefully you're walking around the casino looking for, her as her alter ego and letting her enjoy the spice of life. And then if you see her at a bar and then you walk up and then you just like, pretend like it's your first time meeting. Like, I got that fantasy. But that fantasy is way more defined than like 16-year-old Casey's version of a fantasy, right? Like kissing in the rain, dancing, like what the, like, come on. All right. Thanks, Ray J, for doing that to me. I could only have one if I had one wish. All right. Jeez, I hope no one heard that. I'm embarrassing myself in public. So yeah, now I think this whole fantasy thing, I'm sure, like, I just know, positive. The girl I'm gonna get with next, I'm like, this is what I want to do. She's gonna be like, okay, that sounds fun. Because also, like, isn't that what people do on Halloween? I'm just like, I don't want to do it on Halloween. I just want to do it on some, like, random weekend. And then let's do that. And let me see if I can, spice your life up. That's just like a wild fantasy. And so I think that's kind of where I'm going with this. Love, this, fantasies, that young teenager, really. And well, because underneath it's like I fell in love with my own imagination, right? And then I want to make it real. And I think that's normal. And I think if that is the whole process of life, and this is my idea, my new hot idea, that play is just making the imagination real. And if you just look at kids and watch them play, it's like, do I got a good argument? So play is imagination made real. And now what? Now, how do I have these crazy imagination? How do I make them real, right? Kissing in the rain and blah, blah, blah. And how definite is it? And what is, like, really my imagination? And what is something else that I saw that I'm like, yeah, I want that. That's cool, right? Like, I don't know. Like, I want to be like, this is my authentic. And I do think, like, inspiration, right? Like, oh my gosh, they're eating at this new restaurant in town and, they put it on their snap and looks how cutesy it is. We got to go there and try it. It's like, I also understand, like, that's how the world goes round, right? But I do think, anyways, all this about love, my first love. And then my first, like, long-term relationship and everything. I mean, we had a really cool foundation, and that was around psychedelics, right? And, yeah. I had heard about this girl. I had seen pictures of her. I thought she was cute. And then when I finally met her, she was so nice and cool. Like, I think I was on, like, It's like after some rave, and then I'm at a different fraternity, and I'm like, I was pretty high, I think, on like mushrooms or something, or probably LSD, and I couldn't really talk. I was still like, wow. But I saw this girl, and she was there, and she had this pretty smile and laughing, and then she was talking to me, and she was inviting me, right? Oh, do you want to come with us and party over here? And I was like, yeah, like I could say that, but it's just like quiet, and she was just warm, opening, and welcoming, and I was just looking at her. I'm like, I'm gonna make this girl mine. And I knew that she was there, and some of her friends had told me that she was like the girl who thought psychedelics were cool and stuff, and I was like the boy who thought psychedelics. And so we had this weird intellectual shared fantasy, or not shared fantasy. We were both just like these nerd kids, right? And it worked. We were the psychedelic nerd kids, and we got to like just go super deep on that, and that was beautiful. So that's kind of how that thing happened. And yeah, where was, in a way, yeah, that was an interesting thing too, because I felt like I had set that in motion years before, right? That was actually something I had actualized. And it's funny, like looking back at my journals, it's like I had written about the girl I had wanted, right? Oh, I want her to be into these things. I want her to be from this sorority, this. I was getting clear on like what I wanted, and then she showed up, right? And nothing ever goes as planned. It didn't happen on my timeline. But when it did happen, it turned out better than imagined. And there's a huge big heron that just landed right in front of me, but it's too dark if I turn the camera around. So what is that? What is the whole question? Something about love and how it happened. When did you first fall truly in love? What happened? Well, I would say I first fell truly in love when I was like ninth grade, young, 14, 15. And I was in love, but she wasn't in love with me. So that was a whole torment that I put myself through. But in really what I was like, now I can kind of see it. It's like, oh, really I was starting to fall in love with my own imagination and my own mind. And then the other time it happened, it was, yeah, there's also this thing of like, you just feel it through the eye contact, or at least me. I'm just like, what is this? What is this that I'm feeling? And then sometimes with the eye contact, your stomach's got butterflies, or however we describe that. And that's just that. But I really think there's something to that. It's like we fall in love. I don't know if we necessarily, I think you gotta fall in love and then you rise as individuals or something like that. But you get, like, what I'm trying to say is like you get kind of drunk. When you're in love, you just sometimes not always be thinking logically, because you're just like, I'm in love. I love her so much. And yeah, I also think like some of that young love, because now I'm gonna be in my 30s. Now I'm playing around with this love thing. I think I was holding on to this idea of like someone else would make me whole or would complete me. I need someone to complete me. And I gotta be complete myself. I gotta be like, yeah. So I think that was, I don't know, something about that and my new take on love. I know this is like how I fell in love the first time, but I'm kind of like, ain't nobody gonna complete me. I'm gonna make it happen. I'm gonna be complete. I'm gonna be content. I'm gonna be whole. I'm gonna be one with all. And from that, whatever shows up is what shows up. And people talk about these attachments. It's like, man, you just straight up get addicted to other humans. And then when you spend like both of my long-term relationships is like lived like over a year together with two individuals. And it's like when you live together and then you go to like being alone, like, bro, you realize like, holy cow, I am so addicted to having that person around, even if we're bickering or whatever. And now it's like being alone is so hard. So yeah, I guess in dealing with that, I feel like that might be tied to this ideas of completion, right? Do I feel complete by myself? Because, yeah, why is that? Why is it like, and, it fluctuates, right? Because it's like you're in a crazy relationship and it's like the first week you just got to place yourself. You're like, whoa, oh my gosh, oh, wow. And then as time goes on, you're kind of like, I kind of miss that person and having them around, and you just start erasing all the chaos and you just only remember the jolly times. And, what is that whole thing, right? So, falling in love. And I guess where I'm coming from next, the next love I find and fall in love with, it's like I want to be coming from a place of like I'm complete. Like I'm gonna do me with or without you in a way. But if you're cool, I think you're fun. You're adding to my life in some way. And if you want to come along, and our journeys match or meet up or whatever, okay. But no longer like I kind of came from an energy of like happy wife, happy life, right? And it's like problem solving energy, and women can tend to be like very expressive about everything that they're on their mind, and then I could take that as, oh, you got a lot of problems or you're complaining and there's now something for me to fix. And it's like, bro, when I start orienting my life on fixing her problems, I'm in trouble, and I don't want that to happen anymore, because it's like, and I think that's come from like, oh, like not wanting to live this dream that I have by myself, or venture out there and and do that. And so I guess what I'm telling myself right now is like, bro, no matter who comes in your life, this dream, my this play, can I take my play seriously? I still every day my imagination to reality, with or without her. It's like I have to carry that energy, because when I get caught in just pleasing her and serve, and oh, I just want to serve my queen, it's like things fall apart in the relationship. And I do think I'm only playing that game because it's a distraction from the stuff I'm not dealing with myself. So I think I just need to retell that to myself. And because I think I'm a little bit off topic, or well, I'm on topic, but it's not really being direct at what the question is asking. How did you first fall truly in love, and what happened? Well, I gave you a lot of thoughts on love, and we'll call it that. All right, my hand is like shaking and everything, and let's see how many questions I have left. 4. What has your perspective on your own? How has your perspective on your own wisdom changed over time? Well, philosophy, wisdom, and I feel like this whole thing got kicked off with it. It's just changing right now. I think I was just, in a way, it was like this surface level researcher. And you see on YouTube and all the people, and they're always sitting there in their big fancy chair, and behind them is like hundreds of books. And I'm like, I gotta be like that. I'm gonna read hundreds of books. I'm dedicating myself to reading. And it was all for something, right? Like I said, and I think a different question is like, I used to say the thing I'm most proud of is my book collection, right? And then I feel like I push, knowledge, understanding. If life's a video game, what are the rules of this? And then I do feel like I reached some sort of completion. And I was lucky to have an amazing person in my life at that time. And I was sharing my completion in this, and they just kind of laughed at me. And they go, yeah. And guess what? I was like, what? And the map is not the territory. And now I think this is exactly how I define wisdom, knowledge, philosophy is changing. That was actually the moment where the searching, in a way, is done, and now it's all application, and it's being creative and iterating within the application. But that's that. If I really want to be the greatest philosopher on the planet, I have to apply my philosophy. It's not enough just to, keep reading and saturating myself with ideas on metaphysics and, the psychology of the mind and blah, blah, blah. And it's like I feel like I've really pushed and have a very complete holistic theory of that, which of course will share naturally, and that will come up. But it's also that energy of like, why haven't I just preached about that? Well, one, it's like I don't feel like I'm the person who can talk about it, because it's like, look at my life, right? My life is not what I want it to be, so okay. And then 2, this other energy of like, what do I really want to do? And that is, do I want people asking me about my work and how I came to these understandings, and the source text in which I'm stacking, and why these things fit so perfectly? Do I want my whole life to be people asking me about their my material? No, I want to have conversations with people. I want them to be real. I want them to share, like, oh, my daughter, won't talk to me and I don't know how to deal with it. And I got mad. It's like, that's what I want to have. I don't want to hear about, like, oh, tell me about, this and this. It's like, you're asking a question that's really trying to get at the root of this iceberg. And I would rather just somehow be a person where people feel like they can conversate with, and not this, like, let's have these nerd talks. I mean, I could do that too. I love philosophy, but yeah. And so how has my wisdom changed over time? Well, I think guiding, and also talking about this, I don't know, I intuitively kind of picked this up, but for different legs or chapters of my life, I feel like I've set guiding questions. And those guiding questions always lead to that felt experience of wisdom. And when I moved into the van, and well, after college, giving up all this kind of corporate career kind of ideas and stuff and interviews, and just walking away from it all and being like, I don't want that. And then I had a van. I'm like, well, okay. And the question I was asking the whole time in the van is, what does it mean to trust? What does it mean to trust? And that was my question. And what I could say is, my answer is, nothing ever goes as planned, but it always turns out better than imagined. And the reason that's so deep into me is because the universe showed me that again and again and again and again. Something falls apart, plan doesn't go his way, and then yet there's, in the ninth inning, somehow magic takes place and happens. And now it's like, there's times, and it's easier with a group of people, where you kind of see something fall apart and it's like, dang, we were so close. And this smirk comes over me because I'm like, no, we're being tested. This is the final hour, It's like, are we going to stay true to our ideals, our morals, what we actually are attempting to actualize or manifest here? And yeah, not every time can I just smirk and be like, you silly universe, you're just testing us. Sometimes I get absorbed in it too, but there's something to that. I have learned that through the felt experience. And why am I talking about that? Let me reread the question so I could string it together. How has your perspective on your own wisdom changed over time? Well, my own wisdom. Well, I guess, yeah, I kind of said it in the beginning. My own wisdom, I'm realizing I'm not nearly as wise as I thought I was. And the reason for that is I'm not applying, well, I am now, but it's been a slow journey to apply the philosophy. And I'm just 8 days in, and it's like baby level stuff. So maybe in a year, I'll talk about this completely different, but I'll probably share exactly this. Well, I had all this knowledge, and I thought wisdom was just knowledge and, esoteric knowledge, not that surface level stuff. And how do you see a layer deeper, right? How do you see the cause and effect in things instead of just reacting in the moment, and, vibrations and psychedelics. And, I thought all of this was wisdom, but it's knowledge. It's not wisdom. Wisdom has to have this flavor of experience, right? Have I put those things on? And I think I put them on momentarily when it felt good, when it was easy. But can you put those things on, and can you hold yourself to the structure, and will yourself? Can you will yourself when your emotions aren't, oh, when I feel good, then I'll do it, right? It's like, how do you show up when you don't feel good? And where is the wisdom to be found in that, right? I got to go play that game, and that's where I'm at now. So that's, I think, mostly how my perspective has been humbling. It's like, just got bop, 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 slapped a bunch. It's like, dude, chill. You don't know Jack Wagon, and like, you could share how you're trying to turn your thing around, but don't sit here and talk like, you're this high and mighty priestess and everyone needs to listen, right? So that was, I'm living that right now. Next question, question 68. What do you still want to learn or understand better? What do I still want to learn or understand better? Well, health. I've taken a break from this right now, but I would say health. Also narratives, and how narratives, self-narratives, how these things all affect us. And when I'm talking about health, it's like, I've recently heard more things about, they're saying that LEDs are now the seed oils of the lights, right? So it's like, and this light, I know it's not the healthiest light for me. So it's like, how does light affect me? And I want to go deeper into that whole realm of light. There's the whole grounding science that's coming out, breath work. These are some of the latest things I want to brush up on, right? I've heard some people say, and I've felt amazing, but it is hard to stay consistent doing Wim Hof's method. But people are like, that's baby stuff. There's deeper layers than that can generate even better results, right? And then I think, Dana White recently went on some crazy recovery, and he talks openly about the guy he worked with. So there was a time, probably like 4 years, 5 years ago, where I was like full on studying this stuff, and I would love to make it full circle on this and go deeper in health. And then also, I feel like where I was at with my philosophical studies is how does this narrative stuff affect us, right? What is the subconscious? How do we rewrite our story? How do we take control of our story? And it almost feels like we're the author and the character of our story simultaneously. And it's like, is there a way where we could like change our brainwaves and step more into that author mode, and then like change things in the past that actually change the future? And what is all of this programming stuff? And then still like psychedelics, right? Like, how do we reprogram ourselves on psychedelics? How does this fit with so these are like things I still want to understand, learn, and comprehend better. And then also with that, it's still articulation, messaging, marketing, applied philosophy. How do you build, certain, how do I guess what I'm learning now and questioning is like, how can I build myself into a content machine? And what am I willing to commit to? If I'm willing to commit to an hour-long video every day, how can I take this file, this is what I committed to, just this 1 hour, and now how can I break this up into a bunch of content, and then how do I either automate it or bring in a team to do it for me at a very reasonable price, and then on top of that, have this content machine be generating eyeballs and a following and an audience, and then at some point, how do I monetize that audience and also go deeper with the audience of those who want to go deeper, right? Like, so that's, I guess, where my current focus is. At some point, I will jump back into health, and I will jump back into this narrative, self-narrative, the narradigm. I will at some point jump back into that, but I feel like all that stuff's on pause because the biggest thing I need right now is consistency. I need momentum, and that's where I'm at with that. So those are things I want to learn and understand better. Question number 69. What expectations do you have for the legacy you will leave? Well, a little bit of a repetitive question, but I'm expecting that dream of me sitting in this chair to actualize, to become real, right? And to be better than I imagine it to be right now. Like, when I'm sitting there in that chair, it's like, maybe, a granddaughter shows up and jumps up in my lap and asks me to read them a book. And then that's how I like, whoa, I'm living it. I want it to be that deja vu thing. And then from that dream, maybe that dream happens when I'm 50, right? Maybe it's my daughter is jumping in my lap and I'm only 50. And then when I'm 100, it's even crazier. Now we're doing it on a nuclear sky yacht or something. And it's like, we run the sky. We have an academy that is floating around in the sky, and other, aircrafts come and land and hang out in our nuclear sky yacht, and they are vibing, right? How do we duplicate this on a spaceship? So how do I expect my legacy to go? I just expect this vision to actualize, to be living it, to be able to grasp it, to be able to experience it. And I know the only way to do that is by showing up every day and doing the things that conducting the experiment. Everything I'm doing right now is just an experiment, right? Like, I'm filming because this is part of one of the things you have to do for the wider experiment. And I think I just have to remember that. I am committing to the experiment. The experiment must go on. So, what expectations do you have for the legacy you will leave? It's gonna happen. It's inevitable. It's already real. It already exists. If I can tap into that feeling so clearly now, it's existing. It's on a parallel timeline, and I just know I'm gonna catch up to that. And this is my whole other thing. It's like, even if I go do some like more normie stuff, like, I'm still gonna catch up to that. It's still gonna actualize. It's inevitable. It's gonna be one of these deja vu moments. But it's also hunting me. It's calling me, and I have to give myself to it. And by giving myself, I mean I have to say this is more important than all of my insecurities. So that's what's on my mind with that. What causes or values are you willing to fight for? Question number 70. What causes or values are you willing to fight for? Well, what comes to my mind is what causes or values am I willing to fight for? Well, what comes to my mind is justice, our foundation. That was a slogan of my fraternity. And how I heard it best defined was actually by one of the guys in the fraternity, and he said that he had heard it somewhere, but he says justice is just the advancement. Wait, no. One of our founding principle is the advancement of justice, and our slogan is justice, our foundation. But the advancement of justice, right? And he defined it as, and I really like this, and this is what's coming to my mind now, is truth in action. Truth in action. So I spent a lot of time studying the truth, but now it's time to put that truth in action. So, and is this something I'm willing to fight for? Am I willing to fight for the truth, right? And that's where I immediately go with this, because I was first like, yeah, I want to fight for the truth. But then I'm also thinking of this other thing where it's like, and everyone is right from their perspective. How do we deal with all of that? Like, there's inner truth, my truth, your truth, this. So, I don't know. Am I willing to fight for that? I feel like more so I want to be a conduit. I want to be a living example of truth in action. And then there's nothing to, that's it. So, truth in action. Am I willing to fight for that? What values am I willing to fight for? Fight is an interesting word for me. Because I could see it's like if we don't align, I'm happy to just let you go. So I kind of view my life more as like a letting go process than it's like fight for that. And now it's interesting because if you get to like American political lens and everything, what are we going to fight for? And is there going to be a time where we're required to fight for something? And what is that we're fighting for? And free speech, like life without free speech would be weird. That would be like weird, right? So, and I guess I'm fighting in myself to live from love and not fear. And love is so abstract to me still. So I just know when I'm being controlled by fear, and then it's like, how do I face off with that? And then also it's like, it doesn't always happen immediately, right? So that's the inner fight I'm fighting. How do I live from a place of love and not fear? Because I really feel like that's what we need. More lighthouses doing that. Because otherwise, if we are living in this place of fear, not love, then this totalitarian world, it's like it's going to actualize itself, because that's the energy that we're already feeding. We're already living out of fear. So, okay, so now you're scared of, you're going to say something on Twitter and your social credit score is going to go down. And so now you're not going to say it. It's like you're already there. You're like, I see myself. I'm already there. I'm already controlled by it. Oh, well, I'm scared of their perception. So now I'm not going to execute my freedom of speech, and I'm just going to be a quiet observer. So it's like, I want to, I think it's easy for the media and things to be like, don't let, we must preserve the democracy and freedom of speech must live. And at the same time, it's like, how much are we already controlled? So, of course, I don't want this totalitarian social credit score craziness. And my whole thesis then is that, like, when we choose to live out of love, we are enough. Like, it happens. When you live from the heart, it happens. It sounds airy-fairy, but I'm trying to make it not, because living from the heart is this vision, right, that I've shared today, and now I have to design experiments to get there. And that's what I think living from the heart is. And it's not easy. It's not easy at all. So, but I do think there's fulfillment in there. This is the game of delayed gratification. Maybe it is easy. Maybe I'm saying it's simple. It's simple. And the follow through, at times there could be resistance. There's just resistance. There's some resistance in the follow through at times. And I hope I hit a breakthrough. And then, this is ideally all the knowledge we have on, habits and lifestyle. After a certain amount of time, it just becomes automatic. So this is my idea on this. What am I willing to fight for? Well, I'm willing to fight to express myself from a place of thriving, to express myself from a place of love and not fear, not what if worst case scenario, how do I live for what if best case scenario. And I got to fight for that. And the fight is inside. What wolf am I going to feed? And if you look at the greater society as a whole, I feel like it's just a reflection. It seems to some like we're moving closer to a totalitarian social credit score, total control system. And then my question and my reflection of that is like, how are we already doing that to ourselves? How am I? Who cares about other people? Who cares about... How am I already doing that? Well, do you post on Twitter? No. Because why? What if I say something stupid? Is that the dominant narrative there? How do you... I mean, I'm always trying, this controlling how people perceive us. It's like, well, totalitarian government would make that easy for you. If your biggest worry is how are people perceiving you, well, look, you just do this, what you're told to do, and then people will think that you're great. And I'm like, but is that how we get anywhere? Is that how innovation actually occurs? No. So, yeah, that's just, I think my quest, right, is like really being radically honest, where it's like I am controlled by like I have been letting myself be controlled by the fear of other people's perception. So I am controlled by fear. I have at times been controlled by fear. And it is a daily battle to instead choose to decide to live from a place of excitement, of love. And, I say love and I kind of like, because I want it to be more direct. I want it to be more like, because I think the fear thing is direct. It's like inaction. I was scared, so I didn't do nothing. And then the love thing, it's like, I took action. I was scared and I took action. Action on what? I don't know. That's why I'm like, you got to make your own experiment. For me, it's like, and just reflecting on this another, how do you show yourself self-love? I'm like, well, thank God I started these cards, because it's like, now I have something to point to. I'd be like, I'm doing that. This is how I'm taking action. Because otherwise, I'm going to fall into the hypnotic rhythm and do nothing. And I think that's really what we got to fight. So, that's, what happened? All right, it's like pitch black. And I'm sitting by the ocean. I can't feel my toes anymore. What causes or values are you willing to fight for? Just to summarize, I'm willing to fight for, I'm declaring to this myself, I'm willing to fight for a lifestyle rooted in what does it mean to thrive? Willing to fight for a lifestyle and what does it mean to come from a place of love and not fear? And that's how I'm going to answer that question. And I also understand, being really real, that it's messy. It's messy. And I don't think there's a right or wrong, but I do think there's a hard or soft. And every situation sometimes requires somewhere in that spectrum. Sometimes you got to be a little bit more hard and firm. Sometimes you got to be a little bit more soft. And we're all learning that game. But yeah. All right. I'm signing out. Peace. Can't feel my fingers.